This is the J. Scott Outdoors podcast on Western big game hunting and fishing, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and use the J. Scott promo code when signing up to receive a $50 KUIU gift card. I'm your host, J. Scott, and I live and breathe hunting and fishing, spending half the year in the field experiencing God's creation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing about our adventures. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we've got a good friend of the podcast, Adam Bronson of Epic Outdoors and Bronson Outfitting out of Utah. How you doing, buddy?
Doing really well. How about you, Jay?
Good. It's always great to have you on the podcast, Adam. I get a lot of feedback when you're on, and so I wanted to talk today about Arizona. But before we get to Arizona Deer and Sheep, want to ask you about how's scouting going? What do you have going on this fall? I know you're always busy, a busy guy in the summer scouting, and kind of want to talk to you a little bit about what you got going on.
Yeah, being here in Utah, and that's where I do most of my guiding. The draw came out here a few weeks ago, and so I've been busy since then, and got some good elk hunts and, some of the best deer hunts, which you always try to get on the Henry Mountains, and a couple other key limited entry draw units, and then a bunch of sheep, both rocky and deserts. So we're going to have a busy fall, having a lot of fun, going with people that have drawn some great tags. So I've done okay myself in the draws, picked up a few tags in different states, and so I've got really a good personal hunting fall looking like, as well as, what I get to tag along with and help others. And yeah, you're right. Scouting is right about to kick off. Trail camera time for some of our elk units and deer units. Deer are obviously further behind in growth than elk, so we don't really start ratcheting that up till July, more so, where bulls are a lot further along and things are looking great up here right now. Spring's been great. It's turned hot the last 7 to 10 days, but we've been below normal temperatures all spring, so we can't really complain. It's had to warm up at some point, and Utah's green, and bucks, bulls, and things ought to be able to grow what they're capable of. Pretty much west-wide. I'm talking to people in Wyoming and Utah, Colorado, northern New Mexico, northern Arizona, Nevada. Everything's setting itself up for what looks to be a great deer and elk year as far as antler growth and whatnot. So yeah, we're about to start getting real busy here. June's a little bit of a lighter month as we get cameras out, and then July, from then on, it gets real busy. So
one thing you brought up there for some of the listeners that maybe aren't as advanced and maybe haven't hunted as much, you mentioned a great point there, that the elk, the antlers are a lot further along in development than the mule deer. And I would ask you the question of, what do you think drives that? Is it when they actually drop their antlers? And do you perceive that as something that's always been the case, that the elk, drop their antlers sooner, start growing quicker, and, then they shed their velvet, whereas the mule deer bucks will, they'll shed probably 30 days later in a lot of cases than the bull elk. What's your thoughts on that, Adam?
Up here, actually, most of our bigger deer will shed in, February. Now, some linger into March, there's no question, whereas the big elk shed month is March. And so it's more than anything, it's biological. Elk are they are programmed. They can make the turnaround about like none other. Drop them in March, and by the 1st of August, they're done. They're still in velvet by the 1st of August, but end of July, 1st of August, they're done, and they're just hardening up, and it comes off in mid-August. So it's more biological than anything, and they just grow. What I mean by that is they grow faster, more inches per day, and everything than deer do. It's, throughout the turkey and bear hunting season this spring, we've been out a bunch, and it just blows your mind, by what even 1st of May, what bulls are starting to have on their heads. And now by by June, you know what they've got. You know what a bull's pretty much probably going to be like by now. I mean, he's obviously not done yet, particularly on his top end. But I'm amazed. I was over there on the San Juan unit the end of May a bunch, and saw bulls, well, at fourth and fifth and sixth, and with giant front ends, and bulls that you're like, that's a bull you got to try to keep an eye on. So it's exciting. You know, there's a period of time for all of us antler guys that, you know, we don't have a lot to do but go maybe chase turkeys and some bears, and it turns around real fast, thanks to Mother Nature. They're got a lot of green feed to eat, and it's the head years come along nicely from what I've seen.
How do you think, you know that I obviously drew that beaver archery tag for elk. My question for you would be, do you think the beaver rivals the San Juan as far as size of top end bulls, or what unit in Utah do you think this year will have some of the best bulls?
I think you drew the tag I would want. I mean, I'm from Monticello, Utah, which is on the San Juan, so I'm a little biased. Grew up there and spent a lot of time there. Love that mountain, and it will produce some great bulls. But per bull killed, I think there'll be the biggest bulls will come off of beaver. It has the potential. It's obviously up to the hunters and what they want to hold out for and whatnot. But with the limited tag numbers that beaver has for what's there right now, you've got something there, buddy. I remember when you called or texted, whichever it was just shake your head like, how does that happen? You're that guy, the one guy, you know, that got the archery tag. So you get a lot to look forward to. It's kind of splitting hairs, that, you know, but I would say probably that the beaver, for the number of tags that they're going to give and the number of big bulls that they'll kill, will probably have the most real big bulls coming off this year. That's my pick, but we'll see.
You know, one thing I didn't realize, we did a podcast a couple months ago when we were breaking down Utah and looking at all the different units, and it was mind-boggling to me. After I drew the tag, it really dawned on me that there's actually only 7 permits on the beavers, 1 non-resident, which is the tag that I drew, and 6 resident tags. Which is great, but I also know that there's over-the-counter archery deer and spike and cow at the same time, but I don't think they can hunt till the last, or they can't hunt the last, or I think the deer hunters can hunt the last week of the season, but the spike and cow hunters cannot. I would ask you the question, I've been asking all the guys that come on from Utah the same question. How much bugling, you know, we've got a full moon on September 18th. The archery season ends on the 16th. If you were just talking about, say, that last 7 days, you know, say from like the 9th on, I mean, is it game on bugling, or is it just kind of just starting bugling?
That'll vary. It seems to vary a little bit year to year. You know, sometimes you think the moon maybe has something to do with it. Sometimes, obviously, colder or rainier or overcast weather will more than likely trigger that and keep them going longer than just a hot, high pressure with 75, 85 degree weather. But I guess if you just had to, I would expect that last 5 to 6 days to start getting really good. I would. You know, high bull calc ratio on beaver, that's, you know, a product of the management strategy. You know, they manage for average age of 7, 8-year-old harvested bulls on beaver, so they let a lot of bulls grow up. And generally on units with a high bull cow ratio like that and others, they sometimes will get going earlier because, you know, they're hearing their buddies firing off, and, you know, nobody wants to be left behind, versus when it's, you know, more of a general season type elk unit and fewer bulls. Sometimes everybody, you know, is a little bit, if there's no rush or no urgency and nobody else is going crazy, well, why do you need to start opening your mouth? I don't know. I'm not trying to be an elk psychologist, but sometimes it feels like that's what goes on. But I definitely think, you know, with the dates shifting later this year on the archery end, it's the best as it could be, unless they make any dramatic changes in the future to their archery dates. So this was the year to drop for sure.
Well, I'm certainly excited for that for sure. And just here in Colorado, spending the summers here in Colorado is better for me from a standpoint of getting out and being able to hike around. My wife and I have been trying to really hike hard every day, and we had a good one this morning. And she cracks me up though. She's weighs just over 100 pounds or something, and she gets to the top of a steep grade and gets up there, and she's got her hands on her hips looking back at me like she's disgusted, like, what are you doing down there? Hurry up. And I said, just give me another month or so, and maybe you won't have to wait on me. But it's certainly fun trying to get prepared for the hunts. And I know you're probably getting fired up. About July 1st usually is when most of my buddies get real fired up about scouting for mule deer and elk and everything else.
Yep, that's right. And there's nothing like the motivation to hike a mountain than a good tag taped to your fridge or something like that you get to see every day. That's pretty good motivation to get ready, and you got plenty of time. And so, yep, it's coming fast.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's dive into Arizona, and Arizona, the application deadline is coming up on Tuesday, June 14th, and that's just around the corner here in a couple days. So our podcast is a bit late, but first of all, tell me what you've got going on there at Epic Outdoors, and for those listeners that haven't heard you on some prior podcasts, what you guys got going on.
Well, we just actually finished our busy season up till now is running a license application service where, for a variety of reasons, people that either miss deadlines or travel a lot or just don't have the time or know-how or are afraid to make mistakes or pick units for them, they hire us to take care of all their Western big game hunting applications, and we're just about the tail end of that season winding down with Arizona. Then there's a couple of other, Wyoming points only and, Texas desert sheep, and then, the fall bison that we do for Arizona in October. But for the large part, we're 95% done with that. But this will be a big year for us as we start to bring back a full service hunting consulting business, including a magazine and everything, coming this fall. We've launched a YouTube channel, and we'll do a bunch of advertising for that. Maybe have, if you're kind enough, have us back on later in the fall when we have pushed go on that. But we're excited about that. Be a Western research-based publication that the backgrounds of us involved, Jason Carter and myself, John Peterson, Chris Peterson, all have been immersed in for a lot of years, and we're glad to be back doing that. Then ability to call in and have hunters call in and consult, pick units with us in terms of strategizing how they want to use their points. At least pick our brains, get us their 2 cents, things like that. Helping folks find landowner tags around the West, helping them find guided hunt opportunities all around Western North America. And again, we're going to really emphasize that that's where we are, is Western North America. Trying to cover the world. We're not doing fishing, and I know you're a big fisherman, but what I mean by that, I fish casually myself, but I'm sticking to what we know and what we love, and that's Western big game. Addition of Canada and Mexico with some of the sheep and big game species, the deer and the others that fall within those lines. But hunting, all things hunting and all things Western big game, what we'll be doing, and we're excited to be back doing everything from a broader scale than just a license application service starting later this fall.
Good. I'm excited to watch you guys progress, and I know you guys will do well. You've got a great background, and you guys live it and breathe it, so it's going to be awesome to watch. Let's take a quick break here before we get into Arizona. GoHunt.com Insider is by far the most valuable tool a Western hunter could give themselves. GoHunt.com Insider are the industry leaders and #1 source for Western hunting for a lot of reasons. GoHunt.com Insider have changed the game for how hunts and hunting information are found. Within a matter of minutes using Filtering 2.0, you'll be able to filter by state, species, residency, odds of drawing a tag, specific hunting dates, and harvest success percentages to find the hunts that fit exactly what you're looking for. If you are a guy that applies across the West or just in your home state but want to find some new opportunity, there's no better way to do it than using GoHunt.com Insider. As an exclusive offer to my listeners, if you sign up for a GoHunt.com Insider membership for $149 a year and use the promo code JSCOTT at checkout, you'll receive a $50 KUIU gift card. Head on over to GoHunt.com/insider and get yourself the most valuable membership a hunter could have. I have known the owners of the Outdoorsmans in Phoenix for over 20 years. They are the authority on optics and hunting gear. Outdoorsmans is the leading designer and manufacturer of high-quality tripods, mounting accessories, and pack systems for all hunters. Their customer service is the best in the business. Go to outdoorsmans.com or call 1-800-291-8065 and use the J. Scott promo code to receive 10% off any Outdoorsmans products. Okay, Adam, let's dive into Arizona sheep and elk, and why don't you give the listeners a little bit of a breakdown of how Arizona works, how they do their draw, and with the new change for the non-resident, kind of walk through the whole process.
Okay. The draw is conducted in two steps. Basically, they first run what they call a bonus pass portion of the draw, where 20% of the tags in each hunt code are set aside for the applicants with the most points. For sheep this year, that's 27 points. For deer, that's 19. Now, that's the absolute max. There will not be any sheep tags that will drop below that, but there will be obviously deer units that, max points, maybe 9 or 10. It just is a product of who applies for that unit. An early deer hunt or some of the coos hunts, some of them are 3 or 4 points. So, but I'm giving the absolute max points, which is 19, which is most relevant for those mule deer guys that are looking at the northern Arizona units, 13B, 13A, and, those that maybe are 1 or 2 points shy of that, looking at, the 12A and 12B units. But so Arizona Game and Fish first runs the draw and allocates 20% of their tags to the maximum point holders, and then the other 80% go randomly. And the biggest change this year that really only applies for deer for non-residents is that in the past, when they were running the bonus point pass draw, and keeping in mind that non-residents can also only be drawn for up to 10% of a hunt code allocated tags per hunt code for deer. Take a 100 tag unit, for instance. They would draw 20 maximum point tag holders, and 10 of those would be non-residents and meet, therefore, the non-resident unit hunt code quota, and leaving no random quota. Well, that's all changed now. Half the non-resident tags have to remain for that random portion of the drawing. So on the very, very best mule deer units, you can pretty much look at the non-resident quota that it will get half of that will get met in the non-resident bonus point pass, because there are about 140 maximum point holders that have 19 points. Like 136 of them are non-residents. So they're very dominant at the top. They'll clean up their portion, 5% in that draw. Residents are now going to get more of those tags in the bonus point pass, and then it's just kind of a free-for-all after that in the random draw. But I guess the moral of the story is everybody now has at least a chance to draw 13A, 13B, late Kaibab, late 12B deer tags, where before they all went to max point holders if you were a non-resident. So that's big news. It gives hope, I guess. And we saw it with some of our license application clients on the elk. We had guys draw with 4 or 5 points, some of the best archery elk hunts in the state, and they would not have drawn that under the old system for elk. So it obviously depends on what side of the fence you're on. If you're one of those guys with 19 points, your wait probably got a little bit longer to guarantee you a tag, just like it did on the elk, and so you're not that happy about that. It's probably something that is just a change that is long overdue. 10 years ago or so, if this would have changed, would be used to it. That's probably, honestly, a more fair way to do it, because there were a lot of disenfranchised applicants that applied for deer every year that had zero chance to draw. And now that's not the case. And so it's probably a fair way. It's just hard when a system's been in place for almost, 20 years to change it when you're one of the last few at the top. And I understand that. So, but for sheep, on the other hand, the maximum point holders are almost all resident. I think there's only 5 or so non-residents left with 27 sheep points. So it really has never been an issue, the non-resident quota being met or exceeded or anything like that on the sheep draw. The majority of the maximum point holders are residents. That's where the tags are going to go. It seems like non-residents are almost every year meet their 10% statewide sheep quota, draw 10, 9, 10, 11 sheep tags a year in the random draw. And so that's really not going to change much for sheep. We as non-residents, I say we because I am one, you're not, but we have to just get lucky in the random draw. And so a couple things to keep in mind on the sheep. Non-residents must apply for a unit that has at least 2 sheep tags to be eligible. If you apply for a unit with 1 tag, it's going to go to a resident, and so you just wasted an application. And non-residents can draw no more than 50% or up to 2 sheep tags in a hunt in any hunt code. So any unit with 4, 5, 6, 7 sheep tags, they can't all go to non-residents, so they're limited that way as well. So. And you and Dar and Craig did a good job, I think, a few weeks ago, really breaking down sheep units top to bottom and individually. I mean, there's something for everybody in Arizona. If you just want to play the odds and try to draw a sheep tag, some of the units in southern Arizona that I might consider, if you either are going to hire an outfitter or are physically able to go hunt hard and backpack hunt, would be some of the 46A and B units. They tend to always have some of the better drawing odds in the state and still have the ability to produce, 170 plus or 175 plus rams. On occasion, 180 rams have come out of 46A. So it's not like they're any slouch, but generally because they're closer to the border, some of them involve more hiking and things like that. They generally have better odds. Some of the other 40, B Mohawk, Gila, some of those tend to have better odds as well. Something on sheep to probably stay away from for all applicants, frankly, residents and non-residents, are the most popular trophy units in Arizona, which you guys discussed, the 22, the 24s, maybe Aravaipa 3132, 37A, the Plomosas. So those units don't always, but more often than not, some of them have been for many years straight. All the tags have been issued in the maximum point draw, leaving no random tags for either residents or non-residents. So even though they are probably, those ones that I just rattled off, tend to be where most of the, if you'd say, high 170s, 180 plus rams have been coming from the last, 5-10 years, they're rightfully great trophy units. But if you don't have 27 points, just be aware that if you apply for those units on a hope and a prayer that a tag slips to the random draw, it's probably going to be just that, a hope and a prayer. You may just be wasting a sheep application if you do 2 choices within those units that I mentioned. I definitely followed up with something that tends to be more the middle of the road, or still you got to fit the criteria you want in a desert sheep, but there are other units, some of the 40 other 44 units or 41s or 43Bs that don't tend to get cleaned up or have enough tags they're not going to get cleaned up in the max point draw. So anyway, wouldn't you say that's pretty much right on? I mean, you're a sheep guy down there, Jay, and I just can't stress that enough. A lot of guys put in for what they label as the best, and they have zero chance. Put in for a 22 and a 24B north or south or something, and they have zero chance most years. Once in a while, when 24B South had, an extra tag or two, a tag would slip to the random draw. But now that 22 is cut to 2 tags and the others are down to 1, just stay away from them, frankly, if you don't have max points, or you're probably just wasting the application.
Yeah, and I think another thing that I go back and forth a lot of times with people on emails, and they call me and they just can't get over the fact of, that maybe a tag will slip, into the random pool. And I go, look, you only have so many years that you're physically able to hunt sheep. And so in my mind, if you do not have max points, you absolutely have to be applying for some of the maybe lesser quality units, but better draw odds, because your odds are so steep as it is. And I think a lot of people really don't understand. They're like, oh, well, I have about a 1% chance to draw. Well, no.
If you round to 1,
yeah.
But really it's 0.0001, but
yeah.
everybody just puts 1% because that's the closest round number. Yeah.
And so if you have, say 25 or 30 years of, quote unquote good years of, physically being able to hunt sheep, in my mind, you need to be trying to draw any tag that you can. And maybe that doesn't mean you put the absolute worst quality, sheep units and try and draw, but you've got to find that happy medium, like you were saying, the 46As, the 46Bs, the 40Bs, and some of those units where, you actually have a fighting chance in there. And so I think you make a great point there. But, to be a non-resident and to put in for and have less than max points and put in for 22, 22's gone to max point holders for, I want to say, like 10 plus years.
I don't know, longer than I even want to look up, and rightfully so. It's been the best. But if you're a maximum point holder, one of those 100 and something people, that's probably your first choice or second.
Yeah.
You should
Absolutely.
put that. And then just
swing
realize
for the fence.
Yeah, you should. And then every once in a while you'll see people drawing a max point tag out somewhere, a Kofas or a 15D or places like that, and that's just those people that are probably maybe they're getting up and tired, and they just say, I want to go hunt. And there's a lot to be said for that with sheep, and that's not just Arizona but everywhere. Desert sheep tags or even Rocky tags they're the hardest of the hard to draw, and you just need your name in the hat as many times in your life as you can, and not do points only, or not make uninformed application choice decisions that really give you literally zero chance to draw. So
and on that same note, I've had people say, well, how many is max? And I say, well, 27. And they're like, well, I've got 18, so in 9 years I'll draw. And I'm like, no, you have to understand that number of 27 is going to keep growing every year until the 112 people get rooted out of that maximum point pool.
Yeah,
and then it really starts to set in with guys, and they're like, oh, I get it now. There's
200 or 300 on every point tier below that, and then you get 5 or 6 below it. There's 500 or 600 every point tier. So max is 27 for this year only. It will never be 27 again. That's what people need to. That's not the ceiling. It stops there. That's just 2016 where it's at. Yep. So it takes a little bit of walking through with some people, but that's kind of what I'm just trying to say is, be realistic. If you are a max point holder and you're one of the most unlucky people over the last 28, 26 years in Arizona, and you're that 112 people that have not drawn yet, you're still in the driver's seat. Your time's coming, roughly 5 or 6 years from now, they'll be gone because they're roughly taking, around 20 a year. So, 5 or 6 years will be finally the 1 point below. But then there's, looking at numbers here, 235 of those chomping at the bit right now. So
right, nipping at your heels, raring and ready for the 5 or 6 years to go by, so they're in the max point pool. And that's another point. I talk to people all the time that have 26, one under, and last year it was 25, whatever one under is, and I always ask them, how old are you?
Yeah.
And how important is it for you to kill a 170 plus ram? If killing a 170 and you're, fairly young and you've got, 20 more years of applying, then maybe maybe you gamble a little bit and just wait your time out and know that maybe in 10 or 12 or 14 years you'll be in the driver's seat and you'll be that, have a pretty good chance. But, if guys call me and, they're 65 years old, I'm like, it could be, another 15 years. And, I know some guys that have been 78, 80 years old that are still hunting, but, not everybody's going to be in that situation. So, I mean, everybody's case is different, and I'm sure you deal with it on a much grander scale. But, you make great points there.
Yeah, well, it just is what it is. It's too much demand for sheep. They're great animals in every state, and way too much demand just due to the nature of sheep being sheep and their biology. We're all the state agencies and state wild sheep or FNAWS organizations and chapters are doing all we can, are very vigilant, but sheep are still sheep, and they're probably never going to be, they're going to be hopefully better than they are now, but they're never going to be prolific, enough to just really start cranking through all this. It's just not realistic in the world that we live in with sheep and way habitat and people. We're here now, and with the disease that's ever present and rearing its ugly head. So it just is what it is. So.
Yeah, let's. I think we covered sheep pretty good there. Let's take a break and then we'll move on to deer. Utah Hydrographics is in the water transfer printing service, and they are open to whatever you can dream up. Choose from a wide range of camo patterns, designs, and colors. Whether it's guns, bows, tools, rifle stocks, vehicles, steering wheels, fenders, dashboards, paint guns, fishing rods, cups, tripods, watches, knife grips, helmets for a local sports team or for your motorcycle, picture frames, mailbox, animal skulls, you name it, they can probably do it. Utah Hydrographics loves taking things that are general looking and turns them into something that looks fantastic and eye-popping. Give them a call and see what they can do for you and receive up to a 10% discount by using the JScott16 promo code. Visit them at utahhydrographics.com or on Instagram at Utah Hydrographics. Whether you are interested in elk, deer, antelope, bighorn sheep, or moose, Western Hunter and Elk Hunter magazines will bring the adventure to your mailbox. These publications feature articles on the finest hunting gear, tips and tactics from experienced hunters, field judging trophies, glassing techniques, calling strategies, and much more. To become a more knowledgeable and skilled hunter, subscribe today. Go to westernhunter.net/jscott and enter your email address for a chance to win a $1,500 credit towards any Swarovski product. Okay, Adam, let's bounce over to Arizona deer and have you kind of walk through your thoughts on the Arizona deer, both mule deer and coos deer.
All right. Well, like I alluded a minute ago, there's been very little hope for a lot of people that dream of hunting the Strip or the Lake Kaibab or any of those, more revered, the most revered mule deer tags in Arizona the last, forever, until this year. And, there are going to be some random tags, available, 2 to 3 to 5, non-resident random tags in a lot of those hunts. And that's not a lot. The odds will be steep for them, but at least there's a chance. And so, for the first time in a long, long time, since probably the point system started, there's going to be people just get flat out lucky and draw deer tags, non-residents. Obviously there's been residents getting lucky, but I'm talking mainly for non-residents now. There's only 4 residents. Whoever those 4 are, they get going, get it on. This is looking like a great year in Arizona. You're guaranteed probably your tag if you put in for it this year. I don't know who they are and what their situation is, but only 4 of you, and northern Arizona, especially, the 13A and B, and even the 12Bs and 12As have had a great spring, early summer moisture pattern. It's been awesome. Same thing for southern Nevada and southern Utah. So this is not one of those years. The benefit of having a deer draw a little bit later in Arizona is you can hedge your bet a little bit until June this year, 14th, and if it's looking like a terrible dry drought year, sit it out if you're a maximum point holder. This does not look like one of those years. So, with the dates on 13A and B kind of flip-flopping this year, those dates that are always kind of alternating weeks, overlap maybe a couple of days, but 13B is the later of the two now, November 11 to 20. It's just clearly, it's probably always labeled as the best, and now with the dates, the later versus 13A, that'll be my first choice. I'm still vacillating on the second choice. Is the only reason I haven't applied yet. But I'll dream big and swing for the fence. I'm actually 2 points shy of max, so I'm really not anticipating, drawing a 13A or B rifle tag in my lifetime. So, I lose my second choice still as one of these later hunts up here usually until I get drawn, and then I'll probably, anything's fair game, the coups and everything like that. But the 12A West late hunt, the 12B West, the 12B late hunts are all great. November 18th to 27th, I guess, this
great
year.
Dates.
Super. Great rut dates. Again, great moisture year. They've trimmed the tags a little bit on 12A West the last few years. Not quite as many early hunts and as many late tags. So that's still a high quality hunt especially for people. If you're a point or two off the top pool max point, and you're getting up in age, or you wanna go hunting, definitely might consider some of those. Versus just saying, hey, I'm going to wait out 12B or 13 B or A for the rest of my life, because they're going to whittle away the non-residents now off those units at a snail's pace. Three or four a year out of 13A and B is all they're going to draw, because there's 60 to 80 tags a year. So that 6 to 8 can go to non-residents, and only half can go in the max point draw. So they're only going to take 3 or 4 a year out of those. And right now there's 136 of them left, so it's going to really slow that whittling down off that 19-point pool. And again, that's unfortunate for those people sitting there, and it unfortunately just is what it is. But
think of the guys that have no chance. Now they have a chance. There's going to be someone that draws a 13B rifle tag with about 2 points, and we're going to read about it in your magazine, I'm sure, and just somebody's going to get lucky. And I mean, honestly, I feel for the guys that have been putting in for a long time, but I think overall it's the best for non-residents.
It is a fair way. I wish it was. The loophole kind of created itself. It was never intended to happen the way it was. It just, the product, the quality, and the high demand for 13A and B and some of the high quality elk units, it created the system. It wasn't, intended to work that way. It probably should have been corrected 8 or 10 years ago, and then it wouldn't be quite as bad. We'd be used to it. The growing pains would be through, but it is what it is. But obviously, Arizona mule deer, everything, in the 12 and 13 units north of Grand Canyon are where most everybody think of. There are a few other units in the state that some great mule deer can come from. Generally take some local knowledge, or outfitters that seem to excel or really pick up on some good mule deer while they're scouting and hunting other species like deer or elk and antelope and stuff like that. And 27 or even 9 or 10, some of those units can produce great mule deer. But most people, especially non-residents, when they think of mule deer in Arizona, they're looking at the 12 and 13 units. The reality of it is, if you've got no man's land points, I guess you have a chance now, so you might just say, hey, I'm going to ride it out. But the early hunts down there are where you can actually at least have a chance to hunt. They don't have early tags on 13, but they do in 12A and B. They can be tough hunts some year, late October dates, maybe dipping into early November. They don't this year, but some years they do. And there's a lot more hunters there. They're not sitting on go rut hunts like the others are, but there are opportunities to still hunt good units with great genetics and hope to get lucky, but hunt them maybe every, 5 or 8 years and do it on a rotation.
Adam, was that buck that your partner Jason Carter shot 8 or 10 years ago, that giant, was like a 270 buck? Was that a 12B late or early?
Late. 12B late.
Wow.
he had maximum points, and there were a couple big deer roaming around on 12B. There were a giant set of sheds picked up that spring prior to the application. He followed his application of 13B up with 12B late and drew it. So yeah, I mean, that's obviously a tremendous deer no matter what unit you're in, and got very fortunate to find it and kill it. But that, there are deer, 220 to 250 deer that always are coming off the late Kaibab and late 12B hunts. I'm not going to make it sound like there's a lot of them, and I will admit that there's per deer killed. There are more 200-inch deer killed on the 13 units than there are on the 12 late hunts, but still, if you're a point or two off, you should be looking at those other units, because now, like I said, if you're taking 7 or 8 non-residents a year out as all off the top point pool, it's going to be 15 or 20 years to get rid of them. And if guys are in their 60s or 70s, that may never happen for them. They may never be in the maximum point pool. So you might really look at it. Maybe too late for this year, such like you said, we're a little later in this podcast is a little bit late, but something you definitely should be thinking about. So, and then obviously the other I don't want to say forgotten, because for most Arizonans, they're as rabid about Coues deer as they are anything us mule deer hunters, and but from a non-resident perspective, I guess at least most people that apply, even through our application service, are targeting wanting to try to draw for mule deer. But having said that, with a lot fewer points, even for the December hunts, which are thought of as the best, because although they're not rut dates, you just get a lot lower tag numbers. Cool weather, it's very pleasant. I think it's the 9th to the 31st now. It's a long hunt. And like I said, pleasant weather, maybe a little bit of pre-rut activity, if but those are good hunts. And a lot of those top-end units can be drawn with 8 to 11 points in Arizona, those late December hunts. And so if you've ever had an inkling to hunt Coues, haven't ever gone to Mexico, and you think you're no man's land, and you hunt mule deer regularly enough in a lot of other states that you think, I'm spinning my wheels on the mule deer thing in Arizona, I don't want to just do an early hunt up north in the Kaibab or something, you might really consider some of the Coues units, And Jay, obviously you being a resident and a Coues,
No.
freak, not whatever you want to say, the opportunities, as you well know, are endless. Some units have 3 or 4 seasons, and the October hunts can be tough, but hot, but oftentimes if you've had a chance to scout and find bucks, maybe in the summer when they're tied more to water and things like that, a buck's living in an area, a lot of guys, you correct me if I'm wrong, will kill some great deer right out of the get-go, either there or even in the over-the-counter archery hunt in August and September. And obviously, as a non-resident, that's maybe not quite as, unless you're going to hire somebody, that's not as easy to do the scouting down there. While you're scouting 23 or 27 for elk, you're finding big Coues and incidentally and trail cameron on some of the same elk waters and things like that. But you can hunt Coues every year in Arizona if you really want to do it, every single year, especially if you get the hunter ed and loyalty point. The lowest you go back down to is 2 points. And I know guys from here in Utah that they draw every single year down there. Put a good unit as a first choice, and something that they're normally always going to give as a second choice. And I'm sure you do as well, Jay. Or people like that.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there. I think there's some 8 to 11 point holders that could have a great December hunt. It's a great time of year to hunt. The deer seem to be more active the last 5 days of the season. Typically after Christmas, you definitely in the northern units definitely get bucks following does. Sometimes depending on cold snaps and stuff in the southern Arizona units, the 33s and the 36Cs and 36As, Bs, 34As, you can get some rut. But you make a great point too that if you just love to hunt, there's October, November, and even some of those late kind of mid-late November, early December Coues deer hunts that you can virtually draw with, a couple points. And then there's units that always have leftover tags as well. And, actually some of the biggest bucks of the year, I think, get killed on the very first hunt, the October hunt. And, if you have the means to hire a guide, there are definitely thing about Coues deer is they're very habitual. They have a real tight circle, and especially in those October time frames, they don't move a lot. So, if you have the time to scout a buck out yourself, or if you hire an outfitter that's really dialed in on those early hunts, I mean, some of the best bucks of the year get shot early from the guys that really watch them and know what they're doing. So, I encourage the non-residents out there, if you just want to go hunt, and it's unbelievable country. If you haven't been in Coues deer country, it's really neat country. And even some of the units that have 300, 400, 500, 600 tags, even in those units, if you're willing to put a backpack on and you're willing to go the extra mile and you're willing to put in a little bit of effort to get back in some of those canyons that are not accessible or easily as accessible by road, you can have some unreal hunts, and see a lot of deer, and have a really good adventure and experience. So I think you bring up a good point there, and I encourage anyone to, I don't know many people that have decided to go hunt Coues that don't get hooked on them. I mean, I know a couple guys that have said, well, I've tried it and I just don't get it. But the majority of people that I talk to that finally go try a Coues hunt, they want to go the next year. They're fired up. I mean, they're an addicting animal for sure. And, they have characteristics, different than a mule deer, but a big Coues deer in their own right is unbelievable, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I look at through social media and other avenues at a lot of the big deer that come out of Arizona, and I'm kind of like I alluded earlier. I'm a little bit committed, not a little bit, a lot committed to get my quote one late deer tag up north, mule deer tag, and then I'm all in for whatever happens after that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Meaning I'll play Coues. I'm going to go hunting as often as I can because I realize that put your name back in the hat. I may do a mule deer, not my first choice, but a Coues second choice will be every year because I've only hunted them once and look forward to do it again this year. But they're fun. Anybody that loves to glass, I love to hunt sheep. Yeah, I love to hunt sheep and I love to hunt big mule deer by glassing and spot and stalking, and that is exactly how you hunt Coues deer. And like you said, those guys that either target Coues specifically in the summer when they're a little bit more tied to water and things like that, they can find them. All you need is one visual of a buck, either through a trail camera or a scouting experience early on, and it's game on. Yeah. He's there. He's not, he's not going to migrate through to some other place or things like that. So in a lot of these units, whether it be outfitters that are targeting them or they're, hunting hard and scouting hard and go through all the elk hunts, through all of that period of time, you get one or two encounters of a buck, and he's on the hit list come October on that first hunt. So I totally agree. A lot of, as you all know, a lot of guys will, on that over-the-counter archery hunt, they'll whack some awesome bucks then too, for the same reasons. They find them early. They know I'll sit here every day for 2 weeks of vacation if I need to, because I've seen a 130 buck here, and that would be worth doing, obviously. So anyway, just something for a lot of people to consider. The reality of the mule deer thing. If you don't want to ever drop and do the early mule deer seasons up on the Kaibab or whatnot, you might consider Coues. The opportunities and units and seasons and combinations are pretty much endless. I'd use your points wisely. If you've got 8 or 10 or 12 points, you'd probably want to use them on a December hunt once and then get back in the, habit of, just going back as often as you want to make time to do it. So,
for sure. Let's take a quick break here.
Have you guys heard about PhoneScope?
PhoneScope is a privately held company that makes custom-molded, precisely engineered smartphone digiscoping adapters. Photographing wildlife has never been easier. Take digiscoping photos and videos from your smartphone and share them with your friends. PhoneScope stands behind their product with a 100% money-back guarantee. PhoneScope is the future of digiscoping. Get yours now. Use the JScott16 promo code and receive 10% discount on all purchases. Check them out at PhoneScope, that's PhoneSkope.com, or on Instagram at PhoneScope. Wilderness Athlete is committed to improving the health and quality of life for the outdoor athlete by providing field-tested, scientifically validated nutrition and sports performance products. Check them out at wildernessathlete.com and use the JScott promo code to receive 10% off any order. Adam, one hunt that jumps out at me that on the mule deer side of it that I think is a little bit of a sleeper, and I may get some hate mail because of pointing it out, but that Unit 9, December 9th through the 31st, super low density of deer. There's only 15 permits. It's a new tag. I think that could potentially be a pretty dang good hunt. With that being said, I think it could be boom or bust. I think as much time as I've spent there, there's just not a lot of deer. I think it would require a lot of local knowledge to do well, or just plain, stumble on a buck. But there are a few good deer there. There are deer that move in and out of the park, and that's a new hunt for this year, and it's just something that jumped out at me. The other unit that I think is interesting, and some decent deer come off there is Unit 3C. Typically pretty rare to get, a buck over 200. But they do kill some bucks, in that 180, 190, maybe even pushing 200. And I know my 3C buddies are probably going to elbow me and say, we kill bucks over 200, but I mean, it's not real common to kill a buck over 200, but that's another sleeper kind of, and it's not so much of a sleeper, but because quite a few people know about it. And then obviously the 27 late, December 9th through the 31st, 25 tags. I think those mule deer will be really rutting, and I think it could be similar, kind of a boom or bust. But if you've got the ability to spend, the whole season, I think you could kill a good deer. And then back to the coos deer, I would venture to say that any non-resident out there that draws an October or a November coos tag, if they're really, really serious and they do want to do the hunt themselves and they put in the time to figure out how to get back into some of the country that people don't go to, I just want to reiterate, I think you could kill a 100-inch plus buck every year if you really worked at it.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I'll first start with some of those mule deer hunt codes you pointed out. I agree. I saw that Unit 9 when it came out. I know about the park. You got some reservation issues there too, but I totally agree. That's not going to be one that you should put in, go down there, expect to drive around in your truck and rut hunt, great bucks out of your pickup window. There will be...
You could go a day and not see a deer.
Yeah, or days, exactly.
Yeah.
Or without seeing bucks. That would probably be one, no question, that I would look at. Unless you're a resident and you know it well through past experience of hunting with, elk or whatever else you're spending up there, you might look at enlisting an outfitter's help that spends a lot of time there, knows that have came across some of those big deer, like we alluded to, kind of on the coos end of things earlier. While they're up there scouting the elk and doing all that, they're like, well, we know some big deer. If everybody draws that, we're game on. But yeah, I would agree. I think that hunt used to be on 20. They used to have a 23 hunt. Then, and they killed a few really good mule deer on it then. Now it's this year 27 and 9. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how many points somebody's willing to put on the line to draw that. Looks like there'll be maybe 3 maximum point tags, but from a non-resident standpoint, there's only going to be one, and it will go to the random draw because there's only one, and then they favor the random draw. So it won't go to a maximum point holder non-resident. So for somebody that maybe is lost in no man's land and is either got a lot of time or is willing to hire somebody there, that I think you got big buck potential. You got $200 potential there, like you do in 3C. The one thing I guess I will say about 3C is I think for a lot of people, and I have a lot of friends and outfitters that work hard on the kaibab and do well for their hunters on the early hunt. But some years when the hunting's tough and you've got 500 to 700 hunters up there, it can be a grind, and you don't have that on 3A, 3C. I mean, it's not as big a unit either, but I think there's 100 tags, and you're going to have an opportunity to hunt a 170-inch plus buck with a little better potential than that. That's, I think, how most of you and I's friends and acquaintances that spend time and guide there would tout that as a 170, plus buck hunt. Anything 180 plus is absolutely let's kill the deer, and 190, 200 is we won the Super Bowl. We did great. They're there, but not a lot of them. So I would agree with all of those, and again, those are some options for people that if you have a lot of points, when I say a lot, 8 to 10, you might want to be a little bit careful applying there because you likely would draw it. And so if you're going to hire somebody, it's a good idea to probably talk to somebody beforehand and get somebody selected ahead of time if you can see it coming. Kind of like if you're going to switch and do a December coos and you're going to need some help, you'd want to talk with somebody and narrow down the 1 or 2 units you want to do so that you don't draw the tag in July 1st of August and start finding somebody and find out, well, they already had 2 hunters with the same points or point more to draw, and they can't help you or whatever. So that one's if you've got some points, you can a 3A, 3C tag or these December coos hunts, you can see them coming to some extent and plan them if you've got that, what's required to get a maximum point tag.
Yeah, good point. Want to finish up today and ask you about the point guard system and ask you have you applied for it yet? I have not applied. I have not put my application in, so I have not done the point guard. But can you tell me a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, it's basically, and it's nice to have it. A lot of states will have the ability to turn your tag back in. Nevada, Utah, Colorado, they all have, if you draw too many tags or you draw something and for some reason, some emergency or whatever, you can't do the hunt. You've got the ability. They all have their own stipulations to turn your tag back in, but you can do it and get your points back, and in some cases get a refund as well. Arizona, this is the first year they've done that. They're calling it the point guard system. When you're checking out, it'll be almost the second to last screen you get to on each species. If you have not already, Arizona's created this new portal account system that they want everybody to go make a portal account. It's just their unique ID, and where they log all your draw results, your points, everything, a place to go see it all. You have to go create that. If you've not created that for you, you will not be able to add the point guard system when you go apply. So don't think, okay, I'm just going to add that when I apply, pay the $5 per species and do it. You have to have created a portal account. So do that ahead of time. And then it is $5 per species. It's not a lot. It's probably very cheap insurance, especially if you're going to, quote, gamble a little bit with, say, I mean, I can't see anybody on a sheep tag doing this, but maybe there'd be a circumstance. But on deer, obviously, you draw a tag and it's not, maybe you didn't do the research, you found out it's not as good as you thought, or maybe, somebody else drew something in another state, or whatever, priorities change, and you want to turn it in. It's cheap insurance to be able to do that. The thing to keep in mind is the way Arizona set it up is you can only turn your tag back in once, and you have to do it before the season starts. There's a simple process that looks like the forms you fill out, take it to a game and fish office, surrender your tag, you're done. Once you do that with, say, a deer tag, you can't do the point guard system again until you've drawn a deer tag. and then it resets itself. So I kind of probably like that because it'll stop the abuse, if there's any abuse going to happen from a system like this, and keep it to the legitimate, I've got an issue and I need to turn this back, or the dreaded, as we've all heard on cow tags or doe tags, somebody put in the wrong hunt code, blew a bunch of points on a cow elk tag, and they called every game and fish commissioner and game and fish office trying to find somebody that gives, and it's just unfortunate. And so this can stop, it's remedy that. But every individual will have to create a portal account. The one thing I will say about that for families, myself included, when applying my wife and kids is, if you've created a portal account, you know what I'm talking about. They'll email you like a confirmation email, and you have to have a unique email, unless they've changed it on the deer draw. But at least on the elk and antelope draw, you couldn't use one email for 5 or 10 or 15 family members. You needed a unique email going to each one. But maybe they corrected that for the deer. I haven't finished all my family yet, so I don't know. But that was one pet peeve when the deer and elk and antelope results came out, is that the first person, myself or whoever that logged on, created the portal account with the said email address, you'd have to create or use your wife, or, in some cases, not all your kids have email addresses if they're young. So it created a problem there that you couldn't do that. But anyway, maybe they've overcome that on the deer. But make sure you set up your portal account, and it'll be a prompt. You'll check in, opt in. It'll add $5 to your species. It's cheap insurance. Keep in mind you can only do it once. And, I guess for those people on the strip or someone like that drew it in a drought year, that might be cheap insurance that you drew it, and this is just one of those terrible years. It doesn't look like it's going to be that at all, but could be used in a situation like that. But again, once you use it once, it's gone. You can't do it again until you've drawn that species and everything resets.
Yeah, and I might also add, I didn't hear you say it, you actually lose your money. You forfeit the money for the tag, but you do get your bonus points reinstated, and you do get an additional bonus point for that year, just as if you put in for a bonus point. So, I mean, overall, I think we've all known situations. I had a guy call me, was super excited. He drew a Unit 10 archery elk permit, and then he realized a week later that it was a archery antlerless, a cow elk permit, and he was just sick.
These will correct those problems. I didn't go into that. You're absolutely right. That's the big benefit of it. Not only you turn your tag back in, but you get your points back to the points pre-draw plus one. Who cares if you made a big mistake? You're glad for them to keep your $300 non-resident deer permit fee, just to not have to take your doe tag that you drew on the Kaibab or
if someone died and you had to go to a funeral, or there's crazy things we know every year that happens. I think it's good insurance, so I think it's a good thing. And
I agree.
Well, it's been awesome having you on, Adam, as always. Just wish you the best success scouting here this summer, and I'm glad you've got a lot of great hunts coming up this fall, and I know my listeners are always excited to hear from you. So just appreciate your time, and I look forward to talking to you down the road here, and probably closer to scouting season, and maybe we can hear some of the preview of some of the bucks and rams and bulls that you're watching. And so until then, buddy, God bless, and keep doing a great job.
Thanks a lot, Jay. Appreciate it. And wish everybody good luck in the draws.
Yeah, and I want to give you a chance to make sure people know how to get a hold of you.
Probably the easiest way is just to go to EPIC, EPIC outdoors.com. All of our email and phone numbers are right on there. That's the easiest way. We start to get into the scouting season. We're not going to be in the office quite as often, so maybe an email. Mine's Adam at epicoutdoors.com. But if you got something really pressing, keep in mind as July and August, and obviously then September hits, we're going to be gone scouting and hunting a bunch. And so, if there's anything that you draw, either right now you've drawn, or you draw in the next few weeks, or until Arizona comes out, which is about the last state, and you need help setting a hunt up or something like that, need outfit recommendations or just advice, feel free to get in touch with us.
Sounds good, buddy. Take care.
You too. All right.